Welcome to Experiments in Poetry, episode 21. In this episode, we will be discussing U2's song, New Year's Day. Released in 1983 on the third studio album from U2 entitled War. So this song was released on U2's third studio album, War, in 1983. As you could tell by the title of the album, War, a lot of the songs or the general feel of the album was very political and about conflicts that were going on at the time that the album was written, or conflicts that were going on in that were happening in their lifetimes in their own country. One of U2's most famous songs, Sunday Bloody Sunday, which was about an incident that happened in Ireland where several citizens were killed by the government during people were shot by the government during this protest. And so this is how, and also during the time that the members of U2 were growing up. So this time in the early 80s, there was the Soviet Union controlling most of Eastern Europe in what is known as the Eastern Bloc communist countries of Soviet Union. And during this time, many countries were starting to want the freedom to have their own elections, not of communist party Soviet officials, but of, for their own local governments. And so this also was occurring in the early 80s and throughout the 80s, which led to the eventual fall of the Soviet Union. So the members of U2 were inspired by this, and that is why their album was entitled War, and include Bono, whose given name was Paul Hewson, and he is the lead singer and a songwriter for U2. Also, there is the Edge, who plays keyboards and guitar, and his natural name is Dave Evans. And then there's the drummer, Kerry Mullen Jr., and the bass guitarist, Adam Clayton. On New Year's Day, I'm picking it because it's become kind of like a favorite song for people to play at the end of the year or around New Year's Day. And in general, it has the gist of kind of like hoping that things will be different come New Year's Day. And so many people listen to this song around that time, and it quite often makes many of greatest songs of all time lists. Though it came out on U2's third album, it was the first song that they ever had where they became an international sensation, and it kind of kicked off a many decades long international rock career. In an interview that Bono gave to Rolling Stone magazine in 2012, he commented that the lyrics were kind of made up spontaneously as they were writing the song, and that he must have been inspired by what was occurring in Poland at the time with the Solidarity movement. And that was a political movement in Poland that was against the communist government. And it kind of was a workers' rights party. And in 1983, when the country of Poland was under a lot of political unrest, and for probably about 2 years was under martial law, and around the time when this song was being written, they had just gotten word that martial law was going to be lifted come New Year's Day in Poland. There was actually an agreement that the government of Poland will eventually be run through free democratic elections starting in 1989. So it kind of was the start of the fall of the communist bloc in Eastern Europe, where those countries that were previously independent countries pre World War II were starting to um, make way towards gaining independence and being able to be their own governments and countries once again. Also, I read somewhere else that some of the lyrics were also inspired because he was a newlywed and he was apart from his bride, and he was kind of thinking about um, being able to be with her and see her again. And I think that that is very interesting as far as these two completely different aspects of one's life and then melding them together to develop a storyline that makes up the New Year's Day song. All is quiet on New Year's Day. A world in white gets underway. I want to be with you night and day. Nothing changes on New Year's Day. On New Year's Day. So this is kind of interesting because so he's setting the scene that this is something that's happening in winter. You could see that, in the northern hemisphere it is quite cold, and that he's setting this imagery of it being cold and snowy, and that life is going on, but he's thinking about being with his loved one on New Year's Day. And however, nothing is going to change. He's still not going to, as far as verse 1 is concerned, it seems like he's nothing's going to change. He's still going to be apart from his loved ones. And then the chorus goes, I will be with you again. I will be with you again. So I think at this point, it's just a hope that he will be reunited with this person again. Now, if you could think about it, I mean, if he's just thinking about the communist countries in general, there was Germany at the time that was also split into two completely, where there were families and everything on one side, on Eastern Germany, and there was Western Germany, and there was a wall that separated the two countries. And so you can also think about it if he's just in general thinking about the politics going on in Europe at the time, especially Eastern Europe, that there are many people who, for many, many years, probably since World War II has ended, so in the 40s, have been separated from their family and loved ones. And so the second verse goes, under a blood red sky, a crowd has gathered in black and white, arms entwined, the chosen few. The newspapers says, say it's true, and we can break through. Though torn in two, we can be one. So again, here I'm thinking of people on different sides of the conflict of communism versus a free democratic election. So these being the two that are broken into and could be one. It's interesting. The verse opens up with under a blood red under a blood red sky. When you think of that deep red of the Soviet flag, but also the Polish flag also has red in it. And then he says a crowd has gathered in black and white. Um, I don't really think he's talking about the color of the individuals, like saying all peoples of all colors are coming together. I think he is referring to the newspaper um, that is telling them that the martial law is going to be lifted and that they are finally free to move about and visit their loved ones, and that um, the crowd has gathered around the newspaper, which is interesting because it's just how far that we have gone. Because in the 80s, the main way that many people had gotten their news might have been from the newspaper during the morning and from the evening news at night. Jostling for a position to read the story and get the news that, yeah, here it is in black and white in the newspaper, that you know this martial law is finally going to be lifted. Um, and then again, say it's true, and we can break through, because it had been a long time. Again, it was since World War II, where a lot of these Eastern Bloc countries, and of course half of Germany, were able to move about freely and have free elections and choose the course of their own countries and governments. I will begin again. I will begin again. And so here it is, the New Year's Day, where the martial law is going to be lifted. And, uh, you know, the narrator of the song is saying, we have a chance to begin and start over anew and build things the way we want. Renewed, right? Time is right. Oh, maybe tonight. I will be with you again. I will be with you again. I think, again, that goes back to being reunited with your loved ones, in your family, and being excited that you will be able to see them after a long time of being um, after a long time of being apart. Is. And so we're told this is the golden age, and gold is the reason for the wars we wage. Though I want to be with you night and day, nothing changes on New Year's Day. So, with all that gained hope in the chorus at the end of the second verse, how you can renew and begin again, in the end, the song is finally concluding that just like your New Year's resolutions, where you say, I'm not going to this, or I'm going to do that, um, that the promises you make to yourself get broken. And not saying that here it's necessarily the promises that the people are making to themselves, but it's kind of like a cynicism that in the end, whether you have a communist rule or somebody else's rule over you, that in the end that human nature is still going to be the same, and that a new war will prop up in a cycle of war, hence the album War, and away from the ones he loves. And it's also a cynicism because it's beyond his control. He wants to be with his loved ones. He wants to begin again and do things differently. And but the people in charge want money and power, and so they will wage war, which will keep him away from the things that he wants to do. And that regardless of what government is there, that nothing changes. So anyway, that is New Year's Day. It's not really the great love story. or a nice New Year's message. But hey, people hear the song, um, the title on New Year's Day, and there's some cute little passages in there, and people equate it with getting together and seeing the ones they love, and there is nothing wrong with that. Sometimes when you hear something, you take a piece and you apply it to your own life, and you hear it the way you feel it, and that's completely fine too. I have my own kind of association with this song, because I didn't know anything about the Polish solidarity movement or the fall of the Soviet Union or the Soviet plight. I was way too young to know any of these politics, about the solidarity movement. And so when I heard the song, I always attributed it to another historical event that is a quite famous story that occurred during wartime. So when I hear the song, regardless of what Bono, the story he was writing, which seemed to be kind of like a fictional story based on, what it must be like to live in a Soviet country and being apart from the ones you love, uh, I kind of made up my own little meaning to the story. Um, so the historical story that I think of when I hear the song, and whenever I hear the song, I think of this story, of this event. And I think it fits quite nicely, but it's a World War One story. And so during World War One, in 1914, there is a famous event that occurred called the Christmas Day Armistice. And World War One was thought to be by both sides, oh, this is going to be quick, in and out and over with. But by the time the first Christmas rolled around, to the wives and mothers took it upon themselves to write open letters in magazines and write letters to the leaders of the countries, to please send their men back home and end the conflict. But that did not happen, and the war carried out for several years. But because everybody thought that it was going to be a quick in and out type of situation, the soldiers also thought that too. And that first Christmas that they were still in, that first Christmas that they were in battle in 1914, they had never seen war quite like this with modern weapons. In the past, there was no machines. It was just, horses and maybe swords, and a musket at most. But now there was machine guns, tanks, and modern vehicles like this. And it went into a very bloody trench warfare. And on Christmas Eve, it has been documented because many of the soldiers that were there at the time went on to write in their diaries and tell stories. So many people on both sides, both the French and English side, and then on the other side, there was the German side, can corroborate this story. So on New Year's Eve, it is rumored that a German soldier yelled in broken English, "You no shoot. On Christmas, we no shoot." And the British side was like, is this a trick? We don't really, know if we can trust this. What are they up to? And on midnight, when Christmas occurred, the Germans on their side started to put up Christmas trees and sing Christmas carols. And the English French side was only about 30 meters from them. And they started to sing Christmas carols as well. And when daylight came, it is rumored that the German soldiers came out of the trenches and brought with them their rations and alcohol and cigarettes and cigars, and had walked out into no man's land in the middle of the two trenches. And then the English French side were like, whoa, they're not kidding. And so that they brought a soccer ball, or a football, as they would say, and their rations and their cigars and their food. And they all came out and exchanged parts of their uniform and shared a meal and some booze and some soccer matches together. And but by noon that day, they had all went back to their separate sides, um, and the war resumed. So nothing changed, but they had that brief period of armistice. So that, when I hear the song New Year's Day off of War, is the real life story that comes and floats to my mind when I hear this song. I hope you enjoyed. Um, I hope you enjoyed hearing that little bit of history if you didn't know about it. And this just goes to show that when people sometimes hear poems or songs, that they use their own life experiences and put their own personal touch and interpretation on the songs and poems that they hear. Thank you for listening, and please hit the subscribe and like button if you want to continue to hear more poems and song interpretations by me. Thank you. Bye bye.